Church intro video. Church intro video. Hello. This is the church intro video. We have 5 minutes. Just under 5 minutes. Give everyone time to join us.
Every day I search in spite of me. Every day I search for what I cannot see. Every day I search for you. Every day I search for the truth. Just can't help falling in love with you. More with every
Hello, Biggs. Welcome.
speak and the mountains tremble with fear. And at the sound of your voice,
I know your wife and my mother will not be
be near to me.
joining us tonight. She's with Phoenix, which means Phoenix won't be joining us tonight.
Every day I long deep inside of me. Every day I long for what's plain to see.
Hello and welcome to Season 3, Episode 88 of the Berean Manifesto. Faith, Hope, and Love for the Modern Christian. This is Pastor Nooms, and I'm here again by myself as Pastor Bill is still on a break. So, to get started and give people, time to kind of get to know us and get to continue to join us, hello Zadie, welcome. Um, my week was pretty good. We are really, really, really busy at work, over capacity type busy, so that is fun. And we are, you know, plugging along. So my week has had a lot of that aspect. I have been in the evenings playing a lot of Pokemon. I finished this week my live decks and finish out the quote unquote decks for Pokemon Arceus. That was exciting. I still don't have the 10 stars and have not finished all of the side quests. For those of you out there in internet land who know what that means, I still have some more to go. Um, but I did at least get most of the game finished. And technically have my live decks done, which was my overall true goal, before moving on to the next thing that I'm going to try to tackle. Turned up a Conan Exiles server to play. If anyone out there is playing Conan Exiles and wants to join us, let me know. The 3.0 patch is coming soon, and so I wanted to get a server up so that way when that was out, we could play together. So that is going to be fun. And I did stream once this week, and I actually streamed that. Hoping to do some more this week. We're going to be doing a lot of changes. There's some new stuff happening in the house, and so because of that, moving some stuff around throughout the next 2 weeks, as we have a bunch of craziness going on. So it's going to be good. Um, so that is kind of where I'm at for the week. It was pretty good. I hope all of you out there that are listening and will listen to this later have all enjoyed your weeks as well. It's the last day of July. I can't believe tomorrow is August. It's just crazy to me how time is just flying by. But um, it's how we live. Um, so the next thing we want to discuss is getting to know the pastors, which is, of course, my favorite part of the um, podcast, and I'm still not sure why I'm doing it without Pastor Bill making me, but here goes getting to know the pastors. If the daytime high temperature has to be exactly the same every day of the year, what would you want the temperature to be? So if it's got to be the highest temperature, um, will never get higher. The downside, Zadie, of 68 or 64, which I agree with, somewhere in that range is my favorite temperature. The downside of that temperature, though, we would never have snow if the high has to be that every day. Um, and I like the rainy cold. I like snow. I'm torn. Um, I would not want it to be snowing every day though, so I wouldn't want in the 30s every day. Um, so I'm a little torn by this question, but I would have to say somewhere around 65. 'Cause that means actually I'd probably say like 73-ish, because that means the mornings would be a little bit crisp. Um, and the evenings would be a little bit cooler, but the day wouldn't get too hot. So maybe like 68, 69, 70, 72, somewhere around that area. Um, so you say 73 is too warm, but yet the house is currently set for 73. So you are currently sitting in 73 with a blanket in the living room. Just saying, Zadie, not that I'm trying to back a bus over you while you're cuddled in a blanket on the couch watching this. Um, but yeah. Huh. Anyway, um, yeah, I definitely would have to say it's somewhere in that high 60s, low 70s is where um, it is, where I'd want to keep it, probably. Um, yeah, I think so. Um, all right. So now comes the part that we're all actually here for, which is us talking about stuff. So for tonight's stuff, I would like to say we're sorry for last week of not being live and not having a podcast come out. We had some family relationship stuff come up. Not in my family group, but our family, some relationships we have outside of our family. Someone had an emergency, and so we took care of that. And, that's one of the things that's really important to us at the Ecclesian House and on the Berean Manifesto are relationships. Um, and we've talked about friendship evangelism in the past. We've talked about all the different aspects, but relationships are so important, and that's what we really are um, looking at tonight is relationships, because relationships are more important to us here at the Ecclesian House than things like um, getting together. That's why we have the format we have, where we're together talking about these items. It's not just me talking. It's not just Pastor Bill talking. It's all of us talking about these things together. People in the chat over here. People in the chat discussing, so that way it engages everyone, and we're having these conversations and topics together. So that's really what we are discussing tonight is relationships for the modern Christian. Now, the bad thing is since I started doing being the big face over the last couple of weeks, um, there I've made every single one of these like a question and then not answer the question, and I didn't do that tonight. It's just relationships for the modern Christian. And so I feel a little bad about that, but I couldn't come up with a clever title. And so that's kind of where we are. Biggs, how was what? You're asking how was what? Um, and while he types that out, so there are three relationships I really want to look at tonight. And this actually might go slightly long, and if it does, we'll show we'll do a part two, and that's okay. We can do things like that. The first one I want to look at is the relationship we have in spouses. Yes, the whole good food and good friends. It's some of the most important things we can do in life. Um, so the first thing I want to look at is spouses. And when we look at spouses, there is a biblical and Christian dynamic to a lot of spousal interactions. And people look at spouses in marriage and long-term relationships, and they're like, well, this is what this says, and this is what that says, and we should always do this, and we should always do that. And there's oftentimes this hierarchical structure that goes one way or another, which does have its roots in biblical times. But on the same token, oftentimes it's grossly simplified. The man is the head of the house, no matter what, and it's like no matter what isn't fully the answer there, but there are reasons for certain aspects like that. And so I want to start. We're gonna go all the way back, not all the way, almost all the way, to Genesis 2:23 and 25. In the CSB it says, "And the man said, This one at last is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. This one will be called woman, for she was taken from man. This is why a woman leaves his father and mother and bonds with his wife, and they become one flesh. Both the man and his wife were naked and felt no shame." Now, I could have easily stopped at the end of verse 24 there, but I didn't, obviously. And the reason is because that both the man and his wife were naked and felt no shame. I find it to be really important to a lot of conversation. Not that we're going the sexual route with this particular podcast, as we try to keep the podcast more family friendly than my traditional streams. And so we're not going to go that direction. But there was no shame between a husband and a wife. There shouldn't be shame between a husband and a wife ever, no matter what it is, because you guys should be coming together as one flesh in all things. You know, I will often forget that my spouse exists for small moments of time and make really stupid decisions and not even say, "Well, what do you think?" And then it hits me, ooh, the other half is more smart than I am. See what I did there? I said more smart. She wouldn't say more smart. She would say smarter, which is actually the real word, for those of you out here who might not realize that I was making a punny joke. So, the aspect, there was one of those things that came up actually this weekend where I was like, this is how we're going to do it. This is what makes the most sense. And my wife, who is Zadie, in chat, and she was like, yeah, I understand why you think that, and I agree with you to a certain degree, that that's the best option. But I started thinking about it, and here are the list of reasons why that's wrong. And it's all because you won't like it. It wasn't like she didn't come at me like, "Hey, these are the reasons why I disagree with what you're doing." She came at me with, "Have you thought about these aspects? If you do what you're planning on doing, you're going to regret it in 6 months for these reasons because you are super picky about certain things." And I was like, oh, those are all super valid. And, you know, we came together on that as opposed to just me saying, "But I'm right," or her saying, "But you're wrong." We came together and had an adult conversation around those. And there wasn't a shame of, "Well, you're dumb and you're stupid and you're this and you're that." And we try never to go down that route. There are times that I'm mean and we don't, because I'm definitely not perfect, especially when I get upset. But that's that aspect of we should be bonded and be one flesh together. And then if you are one flesh, the shame and the fighting and the certain aspects of those are more limited because you are together of one mind and of one body. Because that one flesh, that includes, you know, one mind, one conversation. You've talked about it. You've made decisions together. You're doing things as a couple, not as a husband and a wife. It is as spouses and as, you know, one flesh together, one flesh. Like this, like this, like this, like this. Okay, so, and you know, then we get into the conversation of, you know, well, that's the Old Testament. The New Testament's completely different because Jesus came and he changed all the rules. All the rules. Well, and then if we turn to Matthew 19, 4 and 6. Now, you know, Jesus changed all the rules from the Old Testament to the New Testament. Don't forget, right? We just said that. So this is Jesus talking. And he says, "Haven't you read?" He replied. He didn't say he replied, of course, that's added. "That he who created them in the beginning made them male and female. And he also said, for this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate. And I want to dig into this for a couple of reasons. So one, obviously, Jesus said the same thing that was recorded in Genesis, which was, hey, the two of you are one. Stop acting like you're separate. And that's important because you're no longer two, but you are joined in the flesh. And then it's like what God has joined, let no one separate. And I want to touch on that part a little bit because that's one of those areas where people are like, well, that means you should never have a divorce. No, in other parts of Scripture, there are reasons for divorce. There are things listed that way. I'm not trying to, we're not going down that road of, divorce is a sin because of this verse. Well, no. Now, what God has joined, let no one separate. Now that's also important to look at because here's the problem. Let no one separate. Not let one of them separate. Let no one else, no one outside of. Do not separate what God has put together. Now, here's a problem. What happens when you're with someone and it wasn't of God? It opens a big can of worms. That statement of what God has joined, let no one separate. What if you didn't? What if you didn't have a marriage ceremony? You just signed the papers. You rushed in and there wasn't godly counsel. You didn't consult God at all. God wasn't part of it. What if you're unevenly yoked? God wasn't a part of it, and then God becomes part of it for one of you. And so you're not, the burden that's on you, that's helping to decide the path that you take, is now different. There are lots of reasons why, but someone outside of your marriage should not be the reason why your marriage breaks up. One of you, the two, something needs to happen in there. And if God joins you, you shouldn't be separated. So stop going out there and get into relationships and getting married and all that other stuff and never consulting the person who created the universe and knows a thing or two about said universe. Just don't do it. Don't do it. Now we want to jump to a verse that's the basis of a lot of what we were talking about in the beginning, that some people have taken out of context. Taking that step too far. I won't say out of context, but the step too far. Because it's always the next guy who takes it a step too far. So when we look at Ephesians 5:22 through 33, this is a little bit of a large passage, so bear with me as I get through it. Wives, submit to your husband as to the Lord, because the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church. He is the Savior of the body. Now, as in the church submits to Christ, also wives are to submit to their husbands in everything. Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself for her, to make her holy, cleansing her with the washing of water by the word. He did this to present the church to himself in splendor, without spot or wrinkle or anything like that, but holy and blameless. In the same way, husbands are to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. For no one ever hates his own flesh, but provides and cares for it, just as Christ does for the church, since we are members of his body. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two will become one. See, there's that reference again. This mystery is profound, but I am talking about Christ and the church. To sum up, each one of you is to love his wife as himself, and the wife is to respect her husband. So, I find it interesting that in his summary, he doesn't talk about the submission, but talks about respect. Because that's a real big thing. You hear often people that talk about this passage, especially in the Old the older generations and the older facets of the church, they will say things like, anything a man does, you need to listen. Um, and that's not necessarily true. Um, that submit to your husbands, that is to be a subordinate, to obey, but also under obedience, um, to be put in subjugation, to submit oneself unto. So it's that aspect of, I love you. Here I am. I'm yours. Now, in that, the husband is supposed to love his wife. If you love your own body, you don't mistreat it. It's plainly what it says. So because of that, if you are in an abusive relationship where your spouse is beating on you and you're like, well, I'm supposed to submit, no, no, that's not where the line is. You're supposed to submit because he's supposed to be loving you and sacrificing himself for you. There's that two-person part of a relationship. People love to quote part of it and forget the other part when it's available for them. But a husband is supposed to love their wife and sacrifice for them. If he's never sacrificing, the question is outlined, does he ever love? Now, sacrificing can happen in 1,000 different ways, and it looks different in every relationship. So, of course, externally, we should not be the one to judge things like that. And internally, you have to look deep into, okay, what are the reasons for all of this? But the big thing there is the aspect of loving each other and respecting each other. And even though it says, submit to your husband, part of it is a husband should also be sacrificial to the wife. So, I find it funny. Some people are like, okay, so, wives submit to your husbands. And then it's like, okay, that means do whatever he says. And then he says to do something crazy. And you're like, well, my husband told me I had to do it. But in telling you to do something crazy, he's breaking the aspect of loving you as himself and as, he's not following that either. So you have to find that balance in everything because it's important. We shouldn't be taking advantage of our spouses in either side because that's not how we're supposed to do it. It's not what the Bible actually says. So stop taking Scripture out of context just so you can be mean. It's rude. So, after that, after spouses, the relationship you have with your spouse. The next thing I want to talk about is the relationship you have with children, because that's kind of a natural progression, spouses, children. That's one of the types of relationships we have in life as Christians and, as people who procreate and breathe and, are human. So, we're going to look first at Ephesians 6, 1 through 4. And this is probably one of the most quoted scriptures about children. And it says, children, obey your parents in the Lord, because this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment, with promise, so that it may go well with you, and that you may live a long life in the land. Fathers, do not stir your children to anger, but bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. And so this is important for several reasons. We often hear, children, obey your parents. Children, obey your parents. Children, obey your parents. Yes. Yes, we get it. Honor your father and mother. Yes, we have to honor our father and mother. Yes. But The other aspect is, as parents, we have to also not provoke our children to anger and to not push um, them in an incorrect aspect. We should be bringing them up and training them in the way they should go, not just dictating rules that shouldn't be followed for their whole lives and, you know, are just, there are some people out there who just do it because they quote unquote can. There's no valid reasons for what they're doing. They're not doing it for their child's safety. They're not doing it because of, any reason other than my house, my rules. Which, it is. But on the same token, your house, your rules, are they valid rules? Are they steeped in something that is healthy and normal? Or do your rules that you have are rules that are detrimental to your children? Do you have crazy rules that are actually unsafe, but it's the rule? You know, Now of course we're talking about parents who are abusing in different ways their children when you start to deal in those aspects. And as Big said, rules have to be different for every child. Just because you have rules in your house doesn't mean it's right for both children. I have two very different children running around my house. One of them, if she's tired, she goes to sleep. She 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 doesn't need to try to go to sleep. Once she decides it's time to go to sleep, she's like her daddy. She lays down, she's out. The other one has trouble sleeping. So she lays down, and if we turn her phone off, we turn her TV off, we turn all technology off, we turn no books, no nothing, no, just lay there. She'll just lay there for hours. And it'll be like 1 o'clock in the morning and I'm going to bed. And she's like, Dad, can I have a hug? You're like, why are you wide awake? What have you been doing? Eh, laying here. So it's different. You have to have a different rule set for each of those two kids. Because one is go to bed. All right, sleep. Wake up in the morning. The other one is, okay, I'm going to stare at the ceiling for 2 hours. Okay, no, you can go read a book. Like, pull out a lamp. Like, turn the lamp on. Read a book. Like, do something. You don't have to just lay there. You shouldn't be on a lot of technology. The blue lights are terrible for sleeping. I get that. But there are other things that are okay. Don't just lay there. Like, I don't want you to have to do that. That's boring. And I wouldn't do it. I'd lie and do something else. Let's be honest. Yes, as Zadie said, the other one is too much like her mama. Because her mama will do that. I'll roll over and I'm like, how'd you sleep? I didn't. And I'm like, what do you mean you didn't sleep? I didn't hear you. No, I just laid here. You were asleep. Didn't want to bother you. Biggs says no Legos. They're too loud. I will have to agree with that. That was a rule when I was growing up. I need very little sleep, even as a child. And so because of that, I would wake up early or go to bed later than my parents sometimes because Dad woke up at a completely different time. And I wasn't allowed to play with Legos because I was right next to their bedroom. And they're loud. They're real loud. And Biggs also made a joke of don't date until they're 18. I know that's a joke because that wasn't the rule in our house growing up. But he has two granddaughters, and I am not ready for them to start dating anytime soon. So I'm thinking like 25, which is also inaccurate, but it's all good. So that's that aspect of when we look at those. And then I want to point out the two words that are real important there. Obey your parents. So that word obey is, sorry, my stuff is very bad. Hoop ak ooar. Ooh ooh oh oh. I don't know. It's a lot of letters. But I try. And so it is to hear under as a subordinate, That is, to listen attentively by implication, to heed or to conform to a command or authority, hearken, be obedient to, obey. And then, when we look at honor, it is to prize, that is, to fix a valuation upon, to revere, and to honor. So, those are real important, what those words truly mean, because often you hear, you should obey me no matter what. Well, you know, I'm not going to say children don't obey your parents, but there is a difference between children obey your parents and honor your father and mother. So honor your father and mother, that doesn't stop. Ever. You should always have a valuation, and you should always revere, value your parents. Period. No questions. The obey is you should heed their command. But heeding a command and doing it no matter what is different. Go jump off of a tree. You know, I'll joke with my girls. Go jump off a bus. And they're like, all right. Start walking towards the front door like they're going to go jump off a bridge. And you're like, do not go jump off. Get back in. And, it's a joke, but, I'm glad they don't obey right away in certain things because it's a joke. So we have to look at things like that. Let's be normal humans and know that people aren't perfect and not. Now, if you notice in there, it says, honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise, so that it may go well with you and you may have a long life. Okay. Well, let's look at where that comes from. And to do that, we've got to go back to Exodus 20. And anyone who has been in, Christian circles for a long time, for those of you out there that have, Exodus 20. For those of you who are new to Christ or listening to this as someone who is not a Christian, I'll explain what Exodus 20 is. Exodus 20 is where we get the 10 Commandments. And so it's the list of, hey, don't do this, do this. Don't go murder people. Don't commit adultery. Don't go steal. Don't lie about your neighbor. There's all these different aspects. So when you get down to verse 12 of Exodus 20, it says, honor your father and mother so that you may have a long life in the land that the Lord your God is giving you. So it's the only one in that group that has a do this and this will happen. Some of them are do this and I will do this, which is different. But this one is, it has a promise attached. It is a good thing. Do this. Honor your elders. And this is honoring your elders. One of those aspects of honoring your elders. That's not something unique to Christianity. Like certain things are unique to Christianity. Do not worship any god but me. That's one that is, unique to Christianity as far as Christianity is the only one that says you should only worship Yahweh. That's one of those aspects. The Sabbath. The Sabbath is not taught in every religion. That we should take a break once a week. Things like that aren't. But honoring your parents, that's throughout. Honor your elders. Respect the people that brought you into the world. Now, one of the things I will say about this is, coming from someone who has a lot of friends with a lot of different backgrounds and a lot of different situations, you can honor your father and mother from afar. That does not mean, my parents, I'm going to throw out an example, hate me, beat me, spit in my face every time I see them, That does not mean go hang out with your parents every day. Um, they're my parents, but they I have cut them off. They are far away. Um, and in that is a certain amount of honor. You're far away. I don't want it. I'm not. You go away. You know. Um, again, this goes back to healthy relationships. This is the perfect way of doing things. So this is, God giving commandments and giving rules for dealing with each other in the correct circumstances. With circumstances outside of correct circumstances, you have to make other decisions. And that's where the Holy Spirit comes into play. That's where you have to pray about it, seek guidance from godly counsel and friends that are godly. Things like that. You do not just, well, I know that they tried to poison my wife, but they're still my parents and I have to love them. You, you don't have to go to their house on Sundays for dinner though, if they're trying to kill your spouse. Like, no, no, no. Those need cut off and move on. So let's be smart about things, not just follow blindly, not thinking about situational aspects. um, and we would be remiss. Um, you are so Big says you are married, so you have to leave and start your conquest. I'm gonna assume that's conquest or um um yeah, okay. So yeah. So, you're together with your spouse. So yeah, you honor your father and mother still, but that doesn't mean they're like, chilling in the backyard 24/7 like, you know, hey, did you take out the trash like your wife asked you? You know, um don't hopefully that's not your life. If that's your life, I'm sorry, and you should probably think about situations. All right. And it would be wrong of me to discuss children and things without discussing Proverbs 22:6. And I might actually have to save the second half of this for another day because I don't think I'm going to be able to get through it in 18 minutes. Um, and so I think we're going to save this as a part 2 for the second part of this and just talk out this more. But Proverbs 22:6 it states, "Start a youth out on his way, and even when he grows old, he will not depart from it." And this verse is real important for those of us that are religious and for those of you that are not. Because the way you start a youth, the way you train a child, determines where they are going to end up. If you teach your kid to be a mean person, then they are going to go through life at a certain point and become a mean person. If you teach your children hatred, they are going to continue to have hatred. Now, if you teach your children love, they are going to have love. If you raise your children as in the religion that you currently hold, for us it's Christianity, they will not depart from it fully. That does not mean there will not be times where your kids rebel and do not listen and do other things. This is not a magic recipe for to have perfect adults later. Just because we raise our children and try to instill in them certain values that we prescribe to as humans, of hey, don't be mean to others. Love each other. That does not mean they won't grow up to be a jerk. But they will remember that they're not supposed to be a jerk, and it will hurt. Yeah, Biggs says that he did the best he could. Well, he said we, but My parents did the best they could. Sometimes you just grow up to be a jerk. It's the personality I have, and I'm rough around the edges, and it's hard. Um, I try though, I really do. I try very hard, and I know what's right. I just sometimes come across as a jerk, and then I go back and apologize. Of hey, I didn't mean to be a jerk. And I feel terrible that I was. And that's the part that they did instill in me. um, the don't be a jerk didn't stick as well as they would like, but the be an apologetic jerk did stick. Sacrifice yourself for others did stick. Um, show love did stick. Just I'm a little more rough around the edges than some people would enjoy. As there's this beautiful, wonderful soul who lives next to my parents, and she is the sweetest lady. My parents live in a 65 and up area. They got their 55 and up. Sorry, not 65 and up. Ooh, I just aged big. So he's gonna get real mad. A 55 and up community, and they're in there. They're close to my grandparents, and then on the other side is this super nice lady, and her parents are all, of course, grown. I mean, her children are all grown. They come to visit when they can, but they all live their own lives, and she is just the sweetest little thing. And we were over there this week. I know you're not even 60, Biggs, and I am sorry. I did not mean to age you like that. Um, we were over there, and she asked if I could help her move a table she was going to pick up. This is a little coffee table. I mean, um, little four-person table for the dining room. Um, but no big deal. Yeah, sure. I'll be. I was hanging out with my mom, so sure, no problem. Um, and so we're over there, and it's this beautiful white, off-white, white-ish table with the chairs, and then a wood finish on the top and then on the seats of the chairs. And it works really well in her kitchen because her cabinets are the same color. Not her cabinets, her thing that you put china cabinet. Her china cabinet is the same color as the top, and then her trim and stuff is white. So it ties the room together really nicely. And she was like, "Oh, it'll be so." Her daughter was like, "Oh, it'll be so nice. She has it'll help lighten the room." And I was like, "Well, I personally, I'm not trying to lighten any rooms. We try to keep rooms nice and dark in my house. We got dark furniture. I like things a little dark." And this poor sweet lady, she looks at me and goes, "Well, honey, that's just because you're just a darker person. Um, and we love you anyway. It's just how you are." And I'm like, I mean, she's not wrong. I'm wearing a black t-shirt. I've got my nails, like, beard's black. She ain't wrong. Like, I'm just a darker person. We all do our own things. But she's super sweet, and, she didn't mean, of course, any malice by it. She's such a sweetheart. And so it was just so cute because she was like, "You're just a darker person." My wife did not let me leave that down for the rest of the day. Anytime she could say it, she did. And it was great because we love the wonderful lady next door. And her husband who is in a facility. My girls love them. They're such sweet people. So that's one of those things we have to look at as adults and as Christians in relationships. Um, since we're at the 49-minute mark, I'm not going to jump into the next section because there was 3 sections we needed to discuss. We discussed spouses, how we should treat our spouses. Let's be smart about it. Let's show love to each other as if we are each other. We are together. We are one. Let's handle life as one. Um, with our children, train them correctly. Gentle guiding, not anything else. Gentle guiding them the way they should go. Not saying there doesn't have to be discipline. There is time for negative and positive reinforcement. But gentle guiding on both sides. There are times we take away things. There are times we do time out. There are times we do different things. Gentle guiding, positive and negative reinforcement. The last one we really want to talk about is friendship. Because guess what? Who do we have more of in our lives? Our spouses and our children, or friends? Now, depending on your family size, you might have more spouses and children than you do friends. Because some people have a lot of kids. I don't know how y'all do it. Good job. Can't do it. Same with spouses. I can't do more than one. I can barely lovingly be with one. Um, couldn't do multiple, and two is enough children. Um, and yes, Zadie, your spouse, me, is also your friend and was your best friend for years before we were married. But we do handle our friends differently than our spouses. And hopefully you do what Zadie did, where your spouse was your friend first, and you've gone through all this friendship stuff we're going to talk about next week before um, getting into uh, relationships. Shouldn't get into relationships with strangers necessarily. I know we live in the dating age, but please get to know people before you just start dating them. Um, and in case y'all heard that, sorry, my dog just decided to freak out for no reason. Um, hopefully that wasn't as loud for y'all as it was for us here. If it was, I will try to edit that down, or I will just remove this part completely. We'll see. Um, but in that, I hope you guys heard this and understand where we're trying to go. Next week, we never do this. This is crazy. Next week, we're going to be talking about friendship. Um, and yeah, as Zadie just said, if you heard her yell a swear word, our dog scared her, so it happens. We're not perfect here. Um, um, for everyone out there, we love you. We hope you have a great week. This is recorded live on Sunday nights at 6:30 Central Time. On Sundays, it goes out on our Twitch. Oh, okay. Sorry. No swearing. Okay. Yeah. They did not hear you swearing, so we're good. On Sunday nights, this goes out on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. You can go to our website, ekk.house, to know which Twitch, which Facebook, and which YouTube. It is my personal Twitch, Pastor Nooms, and we will hopefully see you guys in that live, so you can be part of this discussion like Biggs and Zadie was tonight, where you can get into the discussion in that way. Um, but I hope you guys all have a great week. We love you, and please be safe out there. See you next time. And now, for those of you that are still here, two of you. Hello, Biggs. Hello, Zadie. Hello, anyone else out there that's not currently counted in our metrics. We used to do a little thing that is for our streaming services to make sure stuff doesn't get cut off as our buffer. So we need a little 30-second buffer here. So we sing a little song, and it's fun, and we're going to do it. 30-second buffer, 30-second buffer, 30-second buffer. Has it been 30 seconds yet? No, because there's a clock down there that counts down the less than seconds that I can see, and it hasn't been 30 seconds yet, so that's not how time works. 30-second buffer, 30-second buffer, 30-second buffer. Okay, I'm gonna turn the stuff off now. Bye. Pull the lever, Crunk.